Hi, this is Denise Matthew. I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to talk about the new moon that's happening on March 2nd. This is a Pisces new moon, so in many ways we could say that it is filled with illusion and dreaminess and even fantasy. There's also the potential for wanting to be escapist, to get away from the world all around you, and to dive into something that feels better. Usually that can come from the form of some sort of entertainment or that type of thing, but sometimes it can come from mind-altering substances. Under modern rulership, Neptune is the ruler of Pisces and Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. So we have Neptune that's bringing this sense of this illusionary energy, and in human design, Neptune is really about not seeing the full picture, not knowing. In fact, in your body graph, wherever Neptune is, whatever gate it's defining, is potentially a place where you don't really understand how the energy works, or you can't put a finger on it. Though Neptune isn't playing a big part in this particular new moon, it is playing a big part in that its sign is being activated. So it's something to keep in mind that there may be this sense of not quite seeing the full picture, or you just do not see the full picture. That could be the potential as well. We'll get into a few more details in a minute. And as I've said before, everybody has a unique experience with how the transits affect you and also how the new and full moons affect you. Some people are very sensitive to it. For instance, like if you are a reflector type, then it would make a lot of sense that you are deeply affected by the moon. And even somebody who has a lot of Cancer energy. Ultimately, we all have different expressions of how this energy works for us, but I still do like to give the potentially most impacted gates every time I do a transit report, because that just gives you a reference point to work from. And the potentially most impacted gates are the gate 63, the gate 4, the gate 64, the gate 47, the gate 49, the gate 60, the gate 3, and the gate 19. So with that said, let's get into the new moon. If we look at this new moon overall, the first thing we can see is that there is a lot of first line energy, meaning that we have the sun, moon, earth, the nodes, Mercury, Venus, and Saturn all in a first line energy. When we talk about the first line, we are wanting to have some level of foundation or some level of certainty. We want to build an absolute truth so that we can feel comfortable in that absolute truth. And this need to build something or make a foundation, and it is always going to be the beginning of the energy of all the gates where we build a foundation, and can be where we have the fullest expression of the energy because it's where we are building the foundation of what exactly that energy means. The other potential that we have with the line 1 is that there is this idea of having some level of fear. The fear is connected to the idea that you don't have something solid or something absolute that you can lean into and make you feel secure. We can also look at fear as the root of all intelligence, because when we have some level of fear, we want to get rid of the fear. And a lot of times how we get rid of the fear is by building a foundation, by trying to find some firmness or some stability in something. And if we look at the specific gates that have the first line, we're looking at the gate 63. And the gate 63 in the line 1 really does talk about this idea of not believing what everybody says. Instead of believing what people say, you have to figure it out for yourself. So prove it for yourself, because if you don't prove it for yourself, you may never feel that security or that absolute that you know what's happening. So this is encouraging us to decide things for ourselves and to prove things for ourselves, not necessarily believe what everybody else is saying. When we find our own truth, then that is the only truth that matters. And that's what that energy is talking about. The gate 64 in the line 1 is talking about understanding where you are in this moment and deciding based on your past experiences where you want to go in the future. It also talks about being connected to superconsciousness and this idea that instead of acting on the information that you're getting, waiting for clarity, waiting for things to really show you in a way where you want to go, or the information that you need based on the experiences of your past or the experiences of superconsciousness. I mean, because that's the whole thing. We can be connecting into superconsciousness where we're getting downloads about experiences of all the collective, you could say. And if we add in Mercury and Saturn in the gate 49 timeline 1 and connected to this concept of proving things for yourself with the gate 63, we can see that this idea of something looking as if it's happening a certain way, but instead of buying into the way it looks and deciding that this is the truth because everybody's saying it, and instead of acting, waiting for the truth that comes to you based on your investigation, based on what you can find, and based on the foundation that you're believing in. From a global perspective, this really does look like we might see something that looks a certain way, but it may not be exactly what we think it is. And if we act on what we're seeing based on the information that we're getting from all over the world, or you could say even media, because it is Mercury, then it may not be something that is in truth. And maybe later on, we're going to find out another side of what's really happening as opposed to what we thought was happening. And it really does play into this concept of the head gates are all about inspiration. They are not about inner authority. They're about outer authority. This is about knowledge to share with other people, but it's not necessarily something that we can use to make the decisions for our lives in a way that it's going to be giving us the best outcome. So let's get into a little bit more detail about the specific gates and the energy that they're talking about in this new moon. As with all new moons, this is when the sun and moon come together in what we would call a conjunction. And this time they're coming together in the gate 63. The gate 63 is energy that we've been working with because Jupiter's been there since the 19th of February, and it will continue to be there until March 13th. But with the sun and moon meeting Jupiter, then we're going to have potential for an illumination of the energy or even an activation of the energy, or it's like a catalyst that makes the energy more pronounced in the world all around us. And since the Earth is always opposite the sun, we know that it's going to be in the gate 64, which is the opposition of the gate 63. Both the gate 63 and the gate 64 are head gates, and that means that it's coming with some level of pressure, a pressure to figure things out. Now with the gate 63, it's a pressure to find the right answers, and the right answers only come when we have some level of doubt about the things that we see in front of us. And if we look at the gate 63 as logical collective energy, it means that we're trying to predict patterns for the future. And with the gate 64, something that we're grounding into, we're talking about abstract collective energy. And this is always about looking at the past. In this case, it could be having a lot of past experiences that you have that are in your mind, but they're not in sequence. And in some way, they're confusing to you. The confusion is relieved when we get the awareness, and that's from the gate 47, which is somewhat of a filtering energy that puts all those pieces of the puzzle together so that you have some sequential information so that you can actually work with it. The reason why we want to make sense of those memories is because we want to pull out the information that matters, the stuff that will help us when we're in the present moment to have a better outcome in our lives, because it is experiential energy. It is based on the experiences that we've had. Now, when we have the gates 63 and 64, these are kind of energies that we could say are inspiration from all the world around us, some level of connection to superconsciousness, especially with the gate 64. So there's potential to be having a lot of downloads with this particular new moon. Now, the downloads may be coming in a way that we're not quite sure of what they mean, but eventually there is some level of clarity and awareness that comes from this energy because they do connect to the AJNA. The gate 64 connects to the gate 47 and the gate 63 connects to the gate 4. So we do have this ability to connect with that energy and to have that clarity come to us. And the clarity that comes from the AJNA is over time. In other words, we keep getting a little bit more information, a little bit more, we could say, pieces to the puzzle until eventually we can make sense of it. And we can have some sense of a realization or what we could consider aha moments. In a lot of ways, we could say that this might be sort of a psychic intuitive time where we are getting downloads of information that we're not always able to get a download from. It is inspiration. So again, this is a pressure that comes with it that you can get lost in this idea of wanting to figure out what it means immediately. Or the other side of it is to get this information, these downloads, and to immediately jump on onto doing something based on what you're getting, especially since there is that level of pressure. And when we're talking about the pressure, the thing to keep in mind is that we're feeling this head pressure or this need to figure out the right answers, to understand what it all means, to see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But we also have pressure from the gate 60, where we're going to have Mars, Venus, and also Pluto all connecting in the gate 60. So we have this limitation or this pressure to be free because we have this coming from the root, and this causes root pressure. Root pressure is adrenaline energy, and here the pressure is to be released from the limitations, to have some level of freedom. Venus is exalted in the line 1, where it's going to be for this new moon, which is positive in that Venus is saying we can find harmony within the limitations. We can find peace and tranquility within the limitations. Mars is in the line 2, and it's meeting Pluto exactly. And this is really talking about this idea of potentially being so locked in the ideology of being limited that you don't actually see when there are new opportunities or new ways to grow within your life. And that's the theme that we've been working with Pluto for a little while, because Pluto moved into the line 2. So in a lot of ways, we could say that there's some level of harmony, but potentially not seeing that you have an opening to start to expand and to maybe transcend the limitations that you have within your life. But one more thing to keep in mind is that on March 3rd, we have Mars moving to the line 3. And this is where Mars gets very antsy to get out, to not have any limitations, to not have any restrictions, to just want to break free and not have anybody limiting them. In a lot of ways, we could look at Pluto or even the gate 60 as really human upon human limitation. This seems to be more of people placing limitations on others as opposed to environmental climate or something like that. So this seems to be more of a person on person kind of limitation. So Mars is saying this person or this thing is trying to stop me from doing what I want to do, so I will break free. The key with the type of energy that comes from the gate 60 is as soon as you break through the limitation before it is transcended naturally, or the universe opens the door for you, is that there's usually another limitation. So it feels like this antsiness to get out, to break free, but potentially to meet something equally as limiting, if not more limiting, once you break free of the initial limitation that you were working with. So ideally, discernment and this antsiness might be there, but knowing that it may not be to our best advantage to just jump and do something based on the pressure that we feel, and instead waiting for a better opportunity or something that is going to open up that can show you that there is a new door to take and a way that you can transform or transcend the limitation, or the people that are making it impossible for you to go forward will naturally be moved out of your way by the universe. And that happens a lot of times, surprisingly. I've seen it where somebody has a boss who just doesn't want to let them go forward. They want to keep them in the same position forever. And many times that boss will be shifted to somewhere else, and that opportunity to start to go where you want to go suddenly opens up. So it might be in our best interest, especially when we have all this pressure from both the head center and also the root center to get free, to find the answers, to a lot of times potentially just act on your thoughts as opposed to acting on your true authority or your inner authority. And the other two players are Mercury and also Saturn, both of which will be in the gate 49 line 1. Saturn will have just moved into the gate 49, leaving the gate 13 on March 1st. So it's bringing a new energy, a tribal energy, and of course a revolutionary energy, because the gate 49 is all about revolution. The gate 49 line 1 is called the law of necessity. What it talks about is the idea that any revolution that happens needs to have a good reason to happen. And in fact, if you're trying to revolt against something, but you don't really have a good reason to do it, then you're not going to get the support to do what you want to do. So in other words, if you're deciding that you want to push against something, or for instance, because this can be part of a relationship energy, because it is part of the 1949 channel or some kind of a partnership, if you want to revolt against the status quo, it's necessary to have a good reason. Otherwise, you're not going to have the support that you want to have. And since we know there's duality in all energy, the other side of this energy is to make some kind of an event happen so that it looks like there's a good reason for you to revolt. This is what Ra Uru called the helter-skelter syndrome. And in today's terminology, you would probably talk about it as being what people call a false flag, or in other words, something that is being portrayed a certain way, but it's not true at all. So in other words, you're making up a reason so that you can revolt. So that is the energy that is in play. Well, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back soon. Until then, take care, and I hope you have an inspired new moon. Bye for now.